The first thing that we're going to do is build an environment for our character. So if we right click on the hierarchy, go down to 3D objects and click plane. Now we can scale up that plane to whatever your preference is. Now we need to go ahead and create our character. So if we right click on the hierarchy, go down to 3D objects and click cube. Unfortunately for me, I had the plane selected. So go ahead and drag the cube off of the plane. Now if we set the Y position to 0.5 on the position and the scale back down to 111, that way the cube is floating right on top of the plane. Now the plane defaults to having a mesh collider, so go ahead and click on the plane, right click on mesh collider and remove component. Go down to add component, type in box and add the box collider. Now let's go up to the top, click window, go all the way down to the bottom and click navigation. Now we're going to go ahead and try and bake our nav mesh into our scene. When we click bake, you'll see that we have to actually save our scene first. So go ahead and save your scene. And if you click bake, you'll still see it's not working. So let's go ahead and click back to our plane, click inspector, and check that item to be static. Go back to the navigation tab and go ahead and click bake. Now we can see that blue nav mesh appearing on our plane. If you don't see that, go ahead in the bottom right hand corner of your scene, you see nav mesh display, and go ahead and check the top part. Since our end goal is to have this character moving, let's go ahead and add our nav mesh agent. Minimize that. Now we're going to finally add our behavior tree. Let's click add component, start typing behavior, and you'll see behavior tree pop right up. You'll notice that two things are initially added to this. Even though we only added behavior tree, we now have behavior tree owner and blackboard. The blackboard is what holds the variables for the behavior tree, which we will get into more depth later. So now if we click create new, you'll be given two options, bound or asset. The first one we're going to go into is bound, and then later we'll get into asset. Now a brand new window for your behavior tree is going to pop up. On this little tab right here, I like to click show on startup and uncheck that so I no longer have to see that anymore. For you, if you want to go ahead and read through that material, go ahead. I'm going to grab the tab and drag it to the bottom so we can see our view, our editor view a little more clearly. Now let's right click on empty space inside the canvas tab. You'll notice there's a lot of options that we'll get into, but the first one we're going to work with is action. So go ahead and click action. Now what appears in our canvas is our first node with a little start tab right on top of it. In the upper left hand corner where it says action in bold capital letters, that's very similar to our inspector, which is where most of our work is going to be done. Now the big button right there, assign action task, go ahead and click it. And you'll see we're given a whole bunch of options once again. But at the top, there's a little magnifying glass, and that's where we can do our searching. The first thing we're going to search for is log. And you'll see the first hit is debug log text, and that's what we're going to use to print out hello world. And as you can see, the first text that comes with that node is actually hello world. So if you just go to the top and click play, we can go ahead and see what that actually does. And there you have it, your first hello world using NodeCanvas.